Sir, to what extent do you think the royal family has done enough around the Andrew and Epstein issue?
The moment was brief, but it said everything. A single question shouted across a crowded walkway in Riyadh. Cameras rolling, officials moving quickly, Prince William stepping forward with his entourage. And then silence. No answer, no acknowledgement, not even a glance. Just a straight line forward, as if the question had never existed. But the public heard it. Has the royal family done enough about Andrew and Epstein? That's not a minor heckle. That's not gossip. That's accountability. And the fact that it keeps following William around the world tells you something the palace doesn't want to admit. The Andrew problem hasn't gone away. It hasn't been buried. And no amount of carefully staged royal tours can outrun it. Because this isn't just about one disgraced prince anymore. It's about trust. It's about responsibility. And most of all, it's about the double standard that continues to haunt this family, especially when you compare how Harry and Meghan were treated versus how Andrew was protected. Let's slow this down and really look at what happened. William was visiting Saudi Arabia on an official trip focused on youth initiatives and sport development. On paper, it's exactly the type of safe, positive engagement the palace prefers. Smiling children, football pitches, handshakes, photo ops, the kind of event designed to keep headlines clean. But reality has a way of breaking through carefully managed optics. Because as William walked through the site, a voice cut through the crowd and asked the question aides dread most. Andrew. Again. Even thousands of miles from London, even with a perfectly planned schedule, the shadow of his uncle is still there. And here's the key detail. This wasn't some random passerby shouting nonsense. It sounded like a journalist. Someone asking a legitimate question about whether the royal family has actually done enough to address the scandal that shook the institution to its core. That's not harassment. That's scrutiny. And scrutiny is part of the job, especially when you're the future king. But instead of addressing it even briefly, William ignored it, kept walking. Aides later insisted he was focused on the engagement and had work to do, which frankly sounds like the standard palace script whenever something uncomfortable happens. Focus on the schedule. Move along. Don't engage. But here's the problem with that strategy. Silence doesn't make questions disappear. It makes them louder, because people notice what you refuse to address. And this is where the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. Think back to how Harry and Meghan were treated. Every rumour responded to with outrage, every tiny protocol misstep, front-page drama, every anonymous claim. Weeks of coverage. They were expected to explain themselves constantly. Yet, when it comes to Andrew, a man who settled a civil sexual abuse lawsuit for millions and stepped away from public duties in disgrace, suddenly the palace believes in silence. No transparency, no real accountability, just distance and damage control. If Harry had been connected to even 1/10 of that controversy, do you think the institution would have protected him? Of course not. He would have been cut loose instantly, titles stripped, access revoked, blame assigned publicly. But Andrew? He was quietly sheltered for years, still seen riding horses at Windsor, still reportedly receiving financial support, still treated, in many ways, like a family inconvenience instead of a national scandal. And the public isn't blind to that. That's why these questions keep happening, not just to William, but to the monarchy itself. Because you can't demand respect while dodging responsibility. You can't preach service while protecting insiders. And you definitely can't lecture Harry and Meghan about duty while shielding someone like Andrew. That's where the hypocrisy becomes glaring. And it's one of the biggest reasons public opinion has shifted so dramatically over the last few years. More and more people are starting to say what used to be whispered. Maybe Harry and Meghan weren't the problem. Maybe they were reacting to a system that protects the wrong people. Look at the timeline. Harry and Meghan raise concerns about treatment, media hostility, lack of protection. They're labelled difficult, complaining, disloyal. Meanwhile, Andrew's issues were known for years before they exploded publicly. Yet the institution's instinct wasn't transparency, it was containment. Keep him close, keep it quiet, hope it fades. That approach backfired spectacularly, because in the modern world, nothing just fades, especially not something tied to international investigations and global headlines. And now William is stuck inheriting that mess. That's the uncomfortable truth. This isn't just Andrew's problem anymore. It's William's problem. It's Charles's problem. It's the monarchy's credibility problem. Every time William steps out in public, someone will ask. Every time he travels abroad, someone will shout. Because until there's a clear, honest reckoning, people will assume there's still something being hidden. And to be fair, William didn't create this situation. But leadership means facing the tough questions anyway. Ignoring them might feel safer in the moment. But long-term, it looks evasive. It looks weak. And for someone being positioned as the future face of the monarchy, that's not a great look. Especially when you compare it to how Harry operates now. Think about it. Harry left. He stepped away from the institution. And yet he answers questions directly. In interviews, in documentaries, in public conversations. Agree with him or not, he speaks. He explains. He owns his story. That's modern accountability. Meanwhile, the palace model still feels stuck decades in the past. No comment. Move along. Private matter. That might have worked in the 1980s. It doesn't work now. Today, silence feels suspicious. And suspicion erodes trust faster than any tabloid headline ever could. There's also something else here that people are noticing. William is constantly framed as the responsible one, the steady one, the future king who will modernize the monarchy. But moments like this test that image. Because modernization isn't just about smiling at sports programs or posting polished social media clips. It's about transparency. It's about confronting uncomfortable truths. It's about saying, yes, this happened, and here's what we're doing differently. Without that, it's just branding. And branding without substance doesn't last. Meanwhile, Harry and Meghan have built their entire post-royal life around openness. Talking about mental health, talking about family conflict, talking about institutional failures. Again, you don't have to agree with everything they say, but at least they're saying something. That's why a lot of younger audiences relate to them more, because they feel human, not scripted, not managed, not shielded by layers of aids, just human. And ironically, every time the palace avoids a question like this, it pushes more sympathy toward Harry and Meghan. Because people start connecting the dots. They start asking, wait, the couple who spoke up got punished. But the man tied to scandal got protected? How does that make sense? It doesn't. And that contradiction is slowly eating away at the monarchy's moral authority. Which brings us back to that moment in Saudi Arabia. A simple question. A missed opportunity. William could have said something brief. Even just, this matter has been addressed and we're focused on moving forward responsibly. That's it. 10 seconds. Instead, the silence became the headline, because silence creates speculation, and speculation keeps stories alive. So while aides might think they protected him by moving along quickly, they actually guaranteed the clip would circulate everywhere. People replaying it, analysing it, asking why. Sometimes the easiest answer really is the best one. And the easiest answer is address it head-on. Harry learned that the hard way. Meghan learned that the hard way. The palace still hasn't. Until they do, these moments will keep happening. More questions, more awkward walkaways, more reminders that the past isn't resolved. And every time it happens, the contrast becomes sharper. One branch of the family speaking openly, the other pretending uncomfortable topics don't exist. In today's world, we all know which approach resonates more, because authenticity always wins in the long run. And that might be the biggest lesson here. Not just for William, but for the monarchy itself. You can't outrun accountability. You can only face it. And the longer they wait, the louder the questions will get. Especially when people already see how differently Harry and Meghan were treated. Fairness matters. Consistency matters. And the public has a long memory. So the next time someone shouts that question across a crowd, and trust me, there will be a next time, the real test won't be whether aides hustle him along. It'll be whether he finally stops, turns, and answers. Because leadership isn't about walking past problems, it's about confronting them. And until that happens, the shadow of Andrew will keep following every royal tour, every handshake, every carefully staged photo, no matter how far from home they travel.